All right, everyone, the wage gap definitely does not exist. The differentiation between the amount of money men on average make and the amount of money on average women make, which is funny. It's funny that these studies have only two genders. Where are the 100 other genders that Tumblr says exist? I don't know, because the same sort of people that make the argument that there is a wage gap between genders that needs to be addressed tend to be the people who say these other off-the-wall things. It turns out, and this has been known for some time, but this is a Harvard study, so it actually matters, has more teeth maybe. It's known that it is a myth that that's due to mistreatment of women. It's not. We have equal protection laws already. You can't simply say, well, you've got no Y chromosome, I'm paying you 10% less than I pay the male employee. That doesn't happen. What does happen is that people make lifestyle choices. Women are more likely to stay at home. They are more likely to get a part-time job and maybe do some hobby self-employed on the side. They are more likely to choose jobs within fields. For instance, they're more likely to choose to be the secretary rather than the boardroom manager. Now, part of this is strictly behavioral and subjective. It's due to long-term sort of gender norms, the same kinds that these people are worried about, but it's not due to discrimination. That's been known for a long time, but to see a Harvard study torpedoing the idea of a wage gap, basically what it's pointing out is, here's how you find that there's a wage gap. And there was a report like not that long ago that said, oh, not only does it exist, it's worse than like 87 cents on the dollar. It's closer to like 54 or something. And I don't know, they cooked the numbers somehow to get that bullshit statistic. And there are lies, damn lies, in statistics. People who believe in a wage gap, they always use the third group there. How it's calculated. You take all the men in the country and all the women in the country. You find out how much they all make and average it out. Now, I'm not sure how they arrive at the absolute number. So again, a little bit of funny fudging of numbers there. A little bit of fuzzy math. Then you divide it by the number of men versus women in the country. And you get these two numbers, and this is the average amount of income. The problem is that it doesn't take into consideration the fact that the genders also have a slight age differentiation. They're not exactly the same. Women tend to live longer than men. The aggregated age will be different. There are different gender roles, and within certain communities it's not really playing much of a role, but in others it does. And then there are lifestyle choices involved. Again, women are simply more likely not to be in the workforce or to be working part-time. They are more likely to. Therefore, the overall number is going to be lower, but it's not because they're being forced to stay at home. It's not because the boss said, hey, you're a woman, you're not worth as much to this company. I'm paying you 20 cents less on the dollar than this dude. I'm paying you 75, 80 cents for every dollar he gets. By the way, I keep meticulous count to make sure that the women earn less than the men in the same fields. That doesn't happen. It'd already be illegal. When people post all these weird things about, well, we need legislation to end this wage gap, there's no wage gap. There's no way to pass legislation to end it. What it would in effect be is you would have to start giving money to stay-at-home moms. You'd have to start distributing taxpayer funding from everyone, male and female, to a bunch of stay-at-home moms and women who want to be self-employed or work part-time or something and, are lower-level entrepreneurs at the moment. Essentially, you'd have to bail out women who are, like, unemployed and stuff like that, sometimes by choice. You'd have to liquidate money and give it to them in order to make the numbers exact. And by the way, these numbers shift over time. It could be that in 20, 30 years, in response to different gender roles that will certainly develop, could be that women end up earning more than men on average. And it'll still not be due to discrimination or an actual gender gap. It'll be due to choices. It'll be because a lot of men ate soy and they wanted to stay at home. They wanted to watch the baby and play video games while the woman goes out to manage the buck farm or something like that. And that could happen, and it'd be perfectly fine. It's a choice. As long as it's voluntary, it doesn't violate any NAP. But the liberals in this country have for years now ruminated on this. And the thing is, they know that the wage gap on gender earnings is a myth. They know that it's funny math. But they present it as though it's not and are willfully ignorant of that for voting purposes. What they're doing is saying to voters, hey, we want to address this. We love females more. Now, when they get in office, do they ever actually address it? No. The reason is because there's no actual legal way to address it. If they were to tell the public that the only way to make these two numbers the same was literally to give money to women who are not working simply because they choose not to work, that wouldn't go over very well, I don't think, with most female voters either, who are part of that productive aspect of the economy. They would end up having to pay more taxes to pay for such a program. It's just like when people show some bullshit study where they're like, oh, 80% of Americans believe free healthcare would be a wonderful thing. Oh, now tell them that that means that if they're making more than 20K a year, their taxes are going to go up. And if they're anything close to the upper middle class, they're going to be paying 50-60% tax rate. Yeah, tell them that for a change. Oh, all of a sudden support seems to have dropped now, doesn't it? This is why it's important to have non-biased groups actually studying real numbers. Happens all the time. Don't believe the statistics that are shown to you by people that generally, on average, the people that are pretending to care so much about these poor women earning less than men, even though that's, at most a half truth, and even then only in a roundabout way. All of those women who are making that case within the Democratic Party have six-figure salaries. And all of the dudes, they have six-figure salaries. Some of them have seven-figure salaries. Some of them have all sorts of business holdings, fucking legal associations, and all sorts of stuff that gives them huge piles of money. Yeah, they don't have to worry about a wage gap. I'm more worried about maybe the wage gap between the unproductive aspect of the economy, namely a bunch of politicians and people who sit on their ass and do nothing, and people who actually work by the sweat of their brow. Yeah, I think that maybe people who work hard should earn more than they currently do and certainly pay a lot less taxes. When we can start by cutting congressional salaries, especially when they talk about the government shutdown, we should fine them anytime they even use that term. That way they'll do it a little bit less. By the way, them threatening to shut down the government at the moment, they got very worried about Trump. I'll be talking about that as well. That's about all. Peace out.